Hi, and welcome to the Bookkeepers Podcast. I'm Zoe Whitman. I am here in actual real life with Joe Wood, and we're joined by James Webb from Pulse. Hi, James. How are you?
Hi, lovely. Yeah, very well. Thank you. Nice to see you both again.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. We've all been at Manchester Accountex, and before we started recording, we were just reflecting on our time, and it's been a very productive couple of days. So
a very sunny couple of days in Manchester. We've had like perfect, lovely weather because it got pretty chilly last week, didn't it? And no one really wanted to head up north, but actually the sun has been shining on us, and it was a lovely, lovely event. And it was so nice to see you, James.
Yes, great to see you both.
How was it for you? How's it been for Pulse?
It's been brilliant. The timing of it for us was perfect. I say that Pulse itself is 2 years old, but we've just kind of launched a new version of the platform, which we're really excited about. So it was great for us to talk about it, share, talk to people about the journey that we're on, meet new people, partners, all of those kind of things. So yeah, a really, really good, productive couple of days. Very, very pleased you went up there.
Fab. Well, look, we'll ask you about all of that in a moment. But before we do, can you tell us, James, a bit about your background and what Pulse is all about, please?
Certainly, yes. So I'll start with my background. I've been in banks or financial institutions for 20 years plus. I'm trying to look youthful when I say that. And that ranges from startups to large corporates. About 2 years ago, I joined Pulse when actually the product itself wasn't in the market. So my kind of job was twofold at that point. One was to create a partnership channel for Pulse, and secondly, really was to take the product out into the market. Prior to that, again, the same thing, about 5 years in partnerships in a slightly different sector. And as I said earlier, previously, in terms of banks with lots of different roles there. But ultimately, all of them have been working with people. And that's the bit that I really enjoy, trying to solve problems, help people, create relationships, those sorts of things from there.
So what is it that Pulse does? What is Pulse?
So Pulse was created originally. It was formed from a lender that was launched back in 2011. And what we discovered very quickly when you're talking to business owners is if you said, "Tell me about your business numerically," lots of them looked at you and said, "I don't really know." And they either didn't have access to the information, or they got it but they couldn't understand it, and loads of different things like that. So as time's moved on, what Pulse was created and has been doing is supporting accountants, bookkeepers and SMEs with providing insights, KPIs, real-time data to help them understand trends, analyze, but also to make real quick time decisions and make perhaps some strategic decisions about the decision that they want to go. But I guess most importantly, be able to monitor and track those to move forwards as well.
Okay, that's really interesting. And from a bookkeeping point of view, many of the bookkeepers in our community are really great at the process part of the bookkeeping. They're very thorough. They understand the transactions. They know how to record them. They know what they should be pushing back on. But it's that next layer of information that doesn't feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's changing, like it's becoming more of the bookkeeper's remit, but maybe people don't feel like they're kind of allowed, they got permission yet to do that, and maybe they don't know what to look for. And I just wonder, in your experience, when you're talking, I guess you're speaking to loads of bookkeepers and accountants, do you think that lots of practices are giving their clients insights beyond the financial statements, or does it just stop at bookkeeping and compliance?
Yeah, I think from talking to people, I think that this kind of the buzzword around the industry at the minute seems to be this advisory or advice. And one thing that's very, very clear is bookkeepers know their clients very, very well. You know, their ins and outs, their kids, all of these things that they know. And I think certainly from talking to them, I think they want to be able to advise. It's just a question of defining what does that word really mean? How do they do that? And how do you step beyond having a great relationship into having these really kind of great conversations that get in to the depth under the skin of these businesses in order to help them in order to move forward? I think lots of people want to be able to do it. It's just how do they do it? Where do they get the information from? What does that look like? And as I say, hopefully that's where we can step in. But certainly, I think across the whole industry, it's very hot topic, whether it's AI, chat GPT, all of these things are out there to try to help and support businesses more.
So how does Pulse do what it does? How is it accessing your clients' data to give insights and KPIs?
So when you connect to Pulse, you sent 2 links. One will connect to your accountancy package. We cover about 85-90% of the market. The second link connects to your bank account. Now, once those 2 are connected, within about 30 seconds, we start to provide real-time insights. So trends on margin, costs, all sorts of things. But what the business owners are able to do alongside their bookkeeper is to set future goals. And our technology will start to track those. And a bit like a speedometer in a car will show you how close you are. So we've shown some demos recently on businesses where they want to reduce their costs or increase their margin. And we'll do all of that in the background, really enabling the bookkeeper to have the conversations. But what we also know is in the business owner and bookkeeper using the same data at the same point in time, so they're not referring to 2 different things when they're having the conversations.
And so, and you mentioned just now about this, I don't know, confusion is maybe not quite the right word, but like lack of clarity around what the term advisory means. And there's loads of things there that you've just mentioned that we could go and do for our clients, but often we don't know where to start. What do you, if you were to like if you were able to put your finger on it and say this is advisory or this is where you start with it, what would you say is included in that?
Yeah, I think for me that the starting point is getting the business owner and accountant or bookkeeper on the same page. And I don't mean in terms of the relationship, but both being really clear about where they are now and where do they want to get to. The bit in the middle, in other words, how do we get there? That's kind of where the value is added. And that is that just by asking questions, is it introducing partners? Is it by working with a peer or a mentor or a colleague? Or what data do we both need to access to do that? And I think for me, that's the start of what this advisory channel or process looks like. And I think once you're both on the same page, and we talk about SMART goals, so specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time constrained. Once you all know what they are, how you're going to measure them and track them, then the expertise of the bookkeeper comes into play. And that's where you guys are great at providing that into your customers.
I think it's the word advisory. Sounds like you have got to be the one that gives the advice, but actually you're not really doing that. You're just having a conversation and a chat and being kind of that accountability partner and saying to the business owner, so what is it you're after? What do you need to do to get there? Do you want me to hold you accountable to that? Kind of, it's not our job to run the business, go and get sales for the business, improve their margins. We're just pointing out what we can see that the numbers are telling us. If they say there's an issue here, we can say, well, there's not enough money, there's not enough margin there. That's why, you're not making enough profit, and that's why there's not enough money in the bank. Or you're not getting the money in quick enough. You've got all of this amount of money in debtors, those kind of things. I think when you say advisory, we think it's financial advice. And we think we need to have answers and be this, not wealth of all knowledge. And that is not the case, is it? Really, what we're saying is just have a conversation.
Yeah, and often kids are great at that, aren't they? Why? And it sometimes feels as we get older, we lose, I don't know, is it the braveness or something to just ask why? Why do you think that way? Why is that happening? And kids are brilliant at it. And sometimes if we stop and think about those things, as you said, we don't necessarily have to know the answer, but we might know someone, we might know something, and that's the start of a great conversation if we can start to do those things from there.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's like sometimes like the fear of like, why is this? Because we expect that. Like we've been doing it this way for such a long time and it's always kind of worked for us, and now it's not working anymore. Why is that? Oh God, if I ask that question, am I then going to reveal something that I have to change about myself or my business or something I'm not ready for? But actually, if you've got that information, things are so much better for you and you can make decisions.
Also, isn't that a confidence thing for bookkeepers to have the strength to go to a business owner and say, why are you doing it that way? I feel that takes quite a lot of confidence. So I completely, when the kids say it is brave, and there's no agenda, they're just like curious. I think we need to become more curious, but without thinking that this business owner that we're working for is like up here and so worthy and we're down here, and how dare us ask a question when someone's paying us an invoice. We feel like we can't, but actually that's where the value is, because no one's asking them that. None of their team are asking them that. They're just nodding dogs and saying, okay, if that's what you think. Actually, people really value it when you say, and they might come back with an answer that's really good, and you go, okay, that's fine. And you're not necessarily having to, you don't have to challenge them. You just have to ask the question. But I do think it's a confidence piece.
Yeah, change is scary for anyone, isn't it? And it doesn't matter how big or small change is. When you're doing something new for the first time, it can be difficult and it can be hard. But often when you look back at it, that's where you learn most, in terms of those little changes that made the big difference. So yeah, it can be difficult, it can be frightening, but we hope that for all of us with the relationships that we got, like we said, it's not about diminishing a relationship or making it difficult. If you can get closer together and help each other more, that's a great relationship to have.
What kind of stories, like when you think about the bookkeepers and accountants you've worked with, or the small businesses that have had have revealed something from Pulse, like what kind of things have changed for businesses because they've got that insight?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I was chatting to a user of us last week, and he'd gone through the Pulse report with a client of his and realised that the costs have been rising month after month after month. That the business owner was busier than ever, but hadn't necessarily stopped to just take time and analyse what was going on. So the costs have gone up, the margins have gone down, the profit had gone down. And all of a sudden, the bookkeeper's phone to the client said, were you aware of these things? And the business owner said, absolutely no idea. I was just too busy trying to keep working and to do all the bits that were important. And when they did stop and look, well, they ended up changing terms to suppliers. They ended up looking at a pricing restructure, loads and loads of things that were were highlighted out of it. But as you said, it was just finding the time to do that and see those trends. And that's what Pulse is trying to solve, those little things there.
Oh, yeah. And then that's where the bookkeeper, who is having a conversation with the client anyway, because inevitably we're chasing something up or we're about to do a VAT return or something, we've got the opportunity to say, hey, have you had an hour going through your finances over the last month? Like, let's do that, because we can then work out what you need and look at this tool.
Yeah, for one of our bookkeepers, and they're a great user of Pulse, but they diarise every month and they just load up the report with their client and say, right, you've got it, I've got it. Let's just chat through together. And what can we learn off each other in terms of things? It's not a one-way learn, is it, in terms of the questions that you ask? And every month they pull it up. It's like a dinner date almost between the business owner and the bookkeeper, and they just explore stuff and learn things. And I think it's brilliant, a really, really good idea.
So we've been speaking lots recently about cash flow as a service, and it's a crucial way of measuring like financial health and how the business is doing. But what else should bookkeepers be thinking about tracking for clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I think for lots of people, they think if there's money in the bank, we're okay, and sometimes that is the case. But of course, there are all these other things that impact the output of that. So, as you mentioned earlier, whether it's costs, whether it's margin, whether it's profitability, I think all of these things are almost like a dashboard on a car. At some point, a light will flash or a warning light will come on. And trying to have that kind of holistic view of lots of these different areas of your business are really important. And of course, lots of people run a business to make money, and I think we shouldn't shy away from that fact. But it's the bits that get there, like we said earlier, that are kind of the bits that we all need to monitor and keep a track on. So, it's difficult, and there are lots of things that can affect it. But certainly, we see lots of people talking about margin, cash flow, pricing, all the things really that kind of add it up to the bigger picture from there.
Yeah, I think it's really nice as well to think about what other thing, like, I mean, obviously understanding non-financial numbers is important too for businesses, because there might be something connected. I can remember a client who'd asked me, like, they wanted to know for every £1 of marketing spend, like, what did that mean in terms of I want to say like new clients or discovery calls, for example. And you can connect those things if you start to track it, but it has to become a habit. And usually for those non-financial numbers, there isn't a like you're not using your accounting software for it. So you
Mm.
have to get into a habit of doing it. And I think there's loads of cool stuff you can do, but you could also do this all day. Like you could make KPIs for absolutely everything. So we've got and we did that. Like even in our business, there was a spreadsheet and it was massive and all these people had responsibility, like, but no one cares. Like it's too much. Like what's really helpful is when you go, this is important to us. And every quarter, we're going to make sure everyone knows. And then we're going to work out what went well and how we're going to do some more of that.
Mm.
Yeah, we kind of paralysis by analysis, and you forever you could just analyze numbers till your heart's content, or you almost justify reasons why or why not. And sometimes if you just stop and look at rations or reasons or things why, and lots of people we talk to nowadays, the number is important, but they want to see those trends, graphs, are things going up, are things going down, rather than look at a month, a day, a week, a quarter in isolation. What's that trend? What's the history? And therefore, what's going on to impact those things are probably just as important as that moment in time that you're looking at as well.
Yeah, because as a business owner, like when someone says to you, oh, do you know, like you said about this guy just now, your costs have gone up loads. You seem busier than ever, but you're not making any more money. He'll be like, oh, yeah, well, that's because this. And then you can start to work out, or did that make an impact or not?
Yeah. We've had a question about whether Pulse provides KPI commentary, like an accountant's report and identifying key metrics. But I mean, Pulse is kind of, well, when I was working with Pulse, it was a very free tool that was just pulling out the data for me. And it was my job to kind of provide that insight, but it was still an amazing opportunity because it was quick and easy and produced. It was like 7 days after month end. It was there, it was done. And I was like, oh, right, now it's time to look at that. Is that still the case?
Yeah, so we've been working really, really hard, predominantly based on the great bits of feedback that we've had off you and the other bookkeepers that we work with. And bizarrely, about 3 days ago, we just launched our new platform of Pulse, and we've added a load of new features, white labeling, et cetera, et cetera. But the two key areas that we've now added, firstly, we call it like a portfolio monitoring. So when the bookkeeper is working alongside their business owner, they can set a load of goals. So it could be that you've just missed a tax return. It could be that an item in your bank account has just bounced. It could be that a large credit has hit your account, or a tax bill has been paid, or whatever. So when the bookkeeper logs into Pulse in the morning, all of these activities across their whole portfolio are flagged and monitored. And it will tell you which ones need action, which ones have been actioned, which ones to keep an eye on. So rather than having to access all these different places for the same thing, it's in Pulse at one point. And the feedback we're getting off bookkeepers is, one, that's a big time saving point of view. But secondly, back to the point earlier, if the business owner is aware of these things, we start to educate and help things in order to move forwards. And the second point, which you just added, which is a bit referred to earlier, is around the goal setting, where you can set 3 goals and Pulse will track those. So the demo that we show is around cost and margin and profitability. As you mentioned, it's kind of like a speedometer bit. And it will send alerts when you're 50% of the way there, 75% of the way there. And that's helpful if someone, I don't know, wants to sell a business or acquire a business, or just early days, start to learn about how are things growing or progressing. So loads of things added. We've got loads of new features to come between now and the end of the year, but it's very, very different now to what we were 6 months ago.
And I think that commentary is really important, but to be able to share, because the numbers on their own usually don't mean something, like they don't mean anything to the client, or they don't know what they're really looking at because they didn't start their business, so they could be a bookkeeper or an accountant or do statistical analysis on their business. Like for us to be able to say, look, I've got these couple of things, just want to flag them, and this is what's do you, like, in your personal opinion, from working with lots of small businesses and bookkeepers and accountants, do you think that commentary is better delivered as a report for a client to say, here are some stats, or is it better to have a conversation with the client? Like, how do you think clients are open to having these calls? Should it be a regular thing, or is it the kind of thing you drop a report every month? I just wonder what you think, really.
Yeah, so with any of these, I think understanding the frequency is really important, and it's always a difficult balance, isn't it? Because if you measure something every day, often it's not long enough to see if there's any change or any progress. If you leave it too long, you've often left it too late. So to find the right balance of what you're trying to track is really important. I personally think once a month to look at a couple of key areas across your business would be sufficient. Obviously, you might need to tweak that dependent upon the size of your business or those sorts of things. But generally, once a month to just get that really good overview and insight into what's going on feels probably about right to me.
Amazing. And I suppose it does depend on those individual business owners, whether they're open to a meeting. When I used to speak to people, they'd be like, oh, yeah, just send me the report or send me a report with a video. And then I'd see that they hadn't opened it. So then when I started saying, let's just have a meeting, they're like, oh, this is so much better because they've got time in the diary. They've got to show up for their business. And even though my videos, some of them are like 3 or 4 minutes, I got them down to be really short. People still weren't making time for their own business. And this is what I'm saying. This is like an accountability partnership more than advisory. It's just holding them accountable to looking at their own numbers. You haven't got to come up with the answers. But even if the job is to make them look at it for 20 minutes once a month, that's a massive, valuable service.
Yeah, bizarre. I mean, so Pulse, we display a lot of things in numbers, and we also display lots of trends. So a graph, and several business owners don't necessarily care what the number is, but has the line gone up or has the line gone down? And if it has, that's great. That's all I need to know. And sometimes that's just enough. You're on the right path and you're doing it. But where things aren't where they want them to be, that's where at least you can spot, you can start to change things before the worst happens, or change things for the better. And I think you're right. It's probably not advice. It's a mixture of lots of different things, isn't it? But back to what we said earlier, if you're on the same page with a good relationship and you all clearly know what you're working towards, there's never really a bad conversation to be had, is there? You can always ask or question, support anything that you've got there.
Oh, that's a really good point. Like for anyone starting your journey with a new client, to say, what are we working towards? Like for this to be a successful relationship, what do you need to see from this? Because that is it, isn't it? It's setting that standard of working together from day one. But I also think like we said, advisory, or the idea of advisory, can feel really daunting, and that we're always thinking about like, how can we help our clients, our bookkeepers in our community, to earn more in their business and build the services out for the clients they're already working with, because that's a really fast way to bring in more revenue into your business. But if you haven't done this before, it's going to feel daunting. You might not know where to start. What do you say to people who, like, I guess you have people who start working with Pulse who have never done anything like this before, and how do you help them feel ready to deliver this service? Where should they start?
I mean, we'll obviously onboard people. We'll give training. We'll give support, and often, probably back to what you said earlier, some of it's the fear factor. Sometimes what we generally see is that the accountant, bookkeeper will probably upload their own business first and go, let me just get my head around what this means. How do I talk about it? What are the benefits of it? And then they'll go, well, I know these couple of clients over here, and they're definitely going to like this. And so let's test it with them and see how that works, and so on. And gradually your confidence builds, and then you start to add more and more into your portfolio. And we're now starting to see, I guess, the back end of that, where people are adding all of their clients, but that's taken a bit of time to get there, and that's okay, because people have to have that confidence with it. So look, I would say take your time with it, and it's important that if you add software or tech or whatever, that A, you use it, and B, it adds value. And if it takes a bit of time to make sure that you understand and use that, then I think that's the right thing to do, as opposed to just use something for the sake of using it that doesn't really add any value to everybody. And like I said earlier, change can be difficult, and something new is always hard. So if you really understand it before you start implementing it everywhere, I think that's the right thing to do.
And I think sometimes when we think about adding a service to our portfolio, we imagine we've got to sell it to everyone on day one. But actually, like you said, you can start using a software like this yourself, seeing if you can benefit. And then you can maybe pick 1 or 2 clients that would really benefit, need this, or you just really like as people, that you can start off with and just slowly build up confidence. But having the team behind you that can, like account managers and things, to help you implement it as well. Also, I think software partners should be doing this for the bookkeepers, holding them accountable. How many meetings have you set up? Who have you spoken to about this? What would this look like if you implemented this software and service into your business? What results would be good for you? How are we going to get you there? So I think, it just goes round and round and round, really, doesn't it?
And often for us, when we talk to a bookkeeper or an accountant after they've been using it, they go, well, "This is how I used it," and we'll go, "Oh, I've never thought of that ourselves." That's something new, and then you've got something else to talk about and share those experiences as well. So you're right; it's a good way to learn.
Oh, James, I've learned loads from this, and I think that anyone listening who's thinking, "Oh, I want to add advisory, I don't know what that looks like," go back and listen to this again, because I think that we've shared some really helpful conversation starters and just a couple of things you can start doing with your client. James, I know you told us before we started recording there have been some updates and developments with Pulse. So tell us about what's changed and tell us about how people can find out more about Pulse.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the portal has been updated. We've added loads of new features. We'll continue to add them. So we've got a couple of different modules which we're going to add between now and the end of the year. The key things we've added, as you mentioned earlier, is about the kind of live alerts across your portfolio, which are really exciting. The goal setting bit that we've added. We're still creating management account packs. You can now white label it. So probably a good 5 things we've added over the last couple of months, and the feedback's been brilliant, and we'll continue to add. For us, we want to add features that add value, and we don't want to add hundreds that therefore make it too complicated. So getting feedback of users is really, really important to us. So in order to find out, either contact myself, go on our website, contact me on LinkedIn, whatever you want. I'm happy to do demos, or our customer support team will do demos, talk you through it. And when we do, we try and do it from 2 ways, which you think is really important. One, for you as a bookkeeper or an accountant, but secondly, what does your customer experience and what's their journey look like? And then that way you should be really clear and comfortable about what it looks like for everybody to move forwards. But we're always here to help should you need it.
Oh, thank you so much, James. That was fab. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time on the Bookkeepers Podcast. Thanks everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.